The rain came down like judgment itself that evening. Cold, relentless, the kind that seeps through clothes and settles into bones. And there she stood, clutching a worn canvas bag to her chest, staring up at the mansion that seemed to pierce the stormy sky. Mama Ruth, a woman whose hands had known nothing but work, whose heart had known nothing but sacrifice. Inside those gleaming walls, behind glass that reflected lightning like broken promises, a voice cut through the thunder. We don't hire dirty beggars here. Leave before I call security. The old woman's fingers trembled as she opened the locket hanging from her neck. Inside, a photograph. A boy's face. Her son. The same boy she'd raised alone after his father died. The same boy who'd slept on a mat on the floor while she worked 3 jobs. The same boy who'd promised, with tears in his eyes on the day he left for university, that he would never forget her. She whispered to the rain, to the mansion, to the sun she could no longer recognize. So this is where your heart has turned to stone, my son. If you stand for justice, hit that like button right now, because what's about to happen will test your soul. If you believe no one should ever forget where they came from, hit the like button and share this story. Let the world know that character matters more than cash. Before we go any further, can I ask you for one small favor? The story took me days to write, record, and edit LHAs every frame, every emotion, every second. It costs you nothing to support me, but it truly means everything for me. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and comment your location below. I want to know where my amazing viewers are watching from. I read every single comment and I'll be giving shout outs in my next video. Let me take you back 6 months earlier, before the rain, before the tears, before everything fell apart. Ethan had done what everyone said was impossible. A boy from the slums. A boy who'd sold water bottles at traffic lights. A boy whose mother washed clothes by the river to pay his school fees. He'd built an empire. Technology, innovation, billions. And along the way, he'd married Vanessa. She was the kind of beautiful that stopped conversations. The kind of woman who wore designer labels like Armor and smiled like she owned every room she entered. Her family had money, but not like Ethan's money. Not the kind that made headlines. So, when she said yes to his proposal on a yacht in Monaco, she wasn't just marrying a man. She was marrying a throne. But thrones are cold. And Vanessa's heart was colder. Mama Ruth had raised Ethan in a 1-room apartment where the roof leaked and the walls grew mold. She'd sung him to sleep when there was no food. She'd held him when other kids mocked his torn shoes. She taught him that respect cost nothing and meant everything. But now, he lived abroad, in London, in penthouses, with views of the Thames. And though he called every week, though he sent money every month, there was a distance growing, not in miles, in spirit. When Mama Ruth decided to visit, she didn't call ahead. She wanted to surprise him. She wanted to hold her son again, to see if success had changed him, to meet the woman who now shared his life. But Ethan wasn't home when she arrived, only Vanessa. And Vanessa saw an old woman in simple clothes, with dust on her shoes and hope in her eyes, and she saw nothing worth respecting. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. Because Ethan, for all his wealth, still carried his mother's wisdom in his heart. He'd heard things, little things. The way Vanessa spoke about waiters, the way she dismissed drivers, the way she laughed when her friends mocked people who worked with their hands. So he made a plan, a test really. Dangerous, maybe cruel, but born from a need to know the truth. He called his mother before she left for the airport. "Mama," he said, his voice heavy, "I need you to do something for me. When you arrive, don't tell Vanessa who you are. Tell her you're looking for work. As a maid. I need to see how she treats people when she thinks no one important is watching." Mama Ruth had gone silent on the phone for a long time. Then, with the patience of a woman who'd endured far worse than deception, she'd agreed. "If this is to protect your marriage, my son, I'll do it. But promise me, when the truth comes out, you'll remember who you are, not what you have." He promised, but promises are easy when you're thousands of miles away. So Mama Ruth stood in that rain, and when the door finally opened, when Vanessa's cold eyes swept over her like she was trash blown in by the wind, the old woman bowed her head. "Please, madam, I'm looking for work. Any work. I can clean. I can cook. I don't need much." Vanessa's lip curled. "We already have staff, and even if we didn't, I wouldn't hire someone who looks like they just crawled out of a gutter." But the head cook, a kind woman named Grace, who'd worked for Ethan since he first bought the house, appeared behind Vanessa. "Ma'am, we actually do need extra help. The upstairs hasn't been properly cleaned in weeks." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Fine, but she sleeps in the basement, and I don't want her touching anything valuable." As Mama Ruth stepped inside, water dripping from her clothes onto marble floors that cost more than her entire life's earnings, she caught sight of a photograph on the wall. Ethan, smiling, successful, happy. She wondered if he'd still be smiling when he learned what his wife was really made of. The test had begun, and somewhere deep inside, Mama Ruth knew that no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same. They say you can judge a person's character by how they treat those who can do nothing for them. If that's true, then Vanessa's character was bankrupt. The first morning, Mama Ruth woke at 5. Her back ached from the thin mattress in the basement, from decades of labor, from the weight of pretending to be invisible in her own son's house. But she rose anyway, tied a scarf around her graying hair, and climbed the stairs to begin her walk. The kitchen was vast, all gleaming chrome and imported marble. The kind of kitchen Mama Ruth used to dream about when she was boiling rice over a kerosene stove, when she was stretching one chicken to feed them for 3 days. Grace found her there, staring at the espresso machine like it was a spaceship. "Don't worry," Grace whispered, kindness in her eyes. "I'll show you how everything works. But be careful around Madame Vanessa. She's particular." Particular. That was the polite word for it. By noon, Mama Ruth understood. Vanessa didn't just expect perfection. She demanded humiliation with it. "You call this clean?" Vanessa stood in the living room, pointing at a coffee table that gleamed like water. "I can see a fingerprint. Are you blind or just incompetent?" Mama Ruth bowed her head. "I'm sorry, madam. I'll clean it again." "You'll clean it 10 times if that's what it takes. And next time, maybe use your brain instead of just your hands. Oh wait, you probably don't have much of that either, do you?" The words landed like slaps, but Mama Ruth stayed silent. This was the test. This was why she'd come, to see the woman her son had married when she thought no one who mattered was watching. Grace, polishing silver in the corner, shot Mama Ruth a look of sympathy. But what could she do? What could anyone do? The days blurred together, scrubbing, serving, swallowing insults like bitter medicine. Vanessa's friends came over for lunch. Women dripping in jewelry, laughing too loud, drinking wine that cost more than Mama Ruth's monthly rent used to be. "Vanessa, darling, where did you find this one?" one of them said, gesturing at Mama Ruth as if she were furniture. "She looks ancient. Can she even walk properly?" Vanessa laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Honestly, I think she's deaf. I've had to repeat myself constantly. But good help is so hard to find these days." They all laughed. And Mama Ruth, standing in the doorway, with a tray of pastries that probably cost more than she'd earned in a year of washing clothes, felt something crack inside her chest. But she didn't break. Not yet. One afternoon, while Vanessa was upstairs on a video call, Mama Ruth overheard something that would haunt her dreams. "Oh, you know Ethan," Vanessa was saying, her voice sugary sweet for whoever was on the screen, but with an edge underneath. "He's brilliant with business, absolutely brilliant. But darling, between you and me, his background is so humble. I mean, I love him, of course, but sometimes I wonder what our children will think when they learn their grandmother probably still sells vegetables somewhere in some filthy market." The laughter that followed was sharp, cruel, the kind that draws blood. Mama Ruth gripped the banister, her vision blurred, not from tears, not yet, but from a pain so deep it lived in her bones. This was the woman her son had chosen. This was the woman who shared his bed, his name, his future. She wanted to scream, to tear off the scarf and reveal herself, to watch the color drain from Vanessa's face. But Ethan had asked her to wait, to be patient, so she would. When a woman forgets respect, even her beauty becomes a curse. If you believe no amount of money can buy good character, hit that like button right now. And check the description. My ebook on moral growth might just inspire your next decision. Because character is the only currency that never loses value. 3 weeks in, Mama Ruth collapsed. She was on her knees, scrubbing the bathroom floor on the second level. When the dizziness came, the room tilted. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She reached for the sink, missed, and crumpled onto the cold tile. Grace found her 10 minutes later and screamed for Vanessa. But when Vanessa arrived, she didn't rush to help. She didn't call a doctor. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, annoyance written across her perfect features. "Is she dead?" Grace knelt beside Mama Ruth, checking her pulse. "No, ma'am, but she's burning up. She needs to see a doctor. She needs rest." "Then let her rest in the basement. And Grace, if she dies, make sure she dies outside. I don't want bad luck in my house. Do you understand? This place cost a fortune." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Grace stared at Vanessa, mouth open, unable to process what she just heard. And Mama Ruth, semi-conscious, heard every word. Every single word. That night, when Ethan called, Vanessa's voice transformed. Soft, sweet, loving. "Darling, I miss you so much. When are you coming home?" "Soon, my love. How's everything there?" "Perfect. Everything's perfect. The house is running smoothly. You don't need to worry about a thing." Mama Ruth, lying on her thin mattress in the basement, stared at the ceiling and let the tears come silently. Her son was blind. Blind to the monster he'd married. Blind to the cruelty that lived under beauty. blind to everything. And she wondered, not for the first time, if this test would destroy more than it revealed. But Grace, bless her, had seen enough. She'd walked in enough houses, seen enough entitled people abuse their power. So she did something dangerous, something that would change everything. She took out her phone and she started recording. Every insult, every dismissive gesture, every moment of cruelty. She captured it all, quietly, carefully, building evidence of who Vanessa really was. Because Grace knew something that Vanessa had forgotten. The truth doesn't stay buried forever, and when it rises like a flood. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Vanessa was hosting a charity luncheon. Ironic, really. Rich women gathering to discuss helping the poor while treating their staff like dirt. Mama Ruth was 70 when her hands trembled. The cup rattled in its saucer. Vanessa noticed. Careful, you useless woman. That china is worth more than your entire existence. One of the guests gasped softly. Another looked away, but none of them spoke up. Because comfort is easier than courage. Mama Ruth steadied the cup, set it down, and as she turned to leave, Vanessa added, loud enough for everyone to hear. Honestly, I don't know why we keep her. Probably because no one else would hire something that pathetic. The room went quiet. Someone coughed. The moment passed. But Grace, standing in the kitchen doorway, felt her phone warm in her pocket. The video was still recording. Every word, every snare, every moment of cruelty documented. Justice was coming. It was just waiting for the right moment. That night, Ethan called to say he was coming home. A surprise. Their anniversary was approaching, and he wanted to celebrate with his wife. Vanessa was thrilled. This was her stage. Her moment to play the perfect wife for her perfect husband. She had no idea that the curtain was about to fall. And when it did, the whole world would see what she'd been hiding in the darkness. Ethan arrived on a Thursday evening, just as the sun was setting, painting the mansion in shades of gold that made it look like a palace from a fairy tale. But fairy tales, as we all know, often hide monsters in beautiful castles. Vanessa greeted him at the door, dressed in white, smiling like an angel. They embraced. They kissed. They looked, to anyone watching, like the perfect couple. In the kitchen, Mama Ruth heard his voice, her son's voice. After 3 months of silence, of pretending, of swallowing humiliation like poison, she heard him. Her hands shook so badly, she had to grip the counter. Grace touched her shoulder gently. Do you want to tell him? Do you want to end this? But Mama Ruth shook her head. Not yet. The test wasn't finished. Ethan needed to see it himself, not because his mother told him, but because the truth revealed itself. Dinner that night was elaborate. Candles, wine, steak that melted like butter. Vanessa played her part perfectly, laughing at his jokes, touching his hand, playing the devoted wife. Ethan seemed happy, relaxed. He spoke about his business, about expansion plans, about the future. And then he noticed the woman serving them. She moved slowly. This old maid, her hands trembling slightly as she poured water into crystal glasses. There was something familiar about her. The way she held herself, the curve of her shoulders, The way she avoided his eyes. "Have we met before?" he asked, his voice gentle. Vanessa barely looked up from her plate. "That's just the maid, darling. Don't bother yourself." But Mama Ruth's hands froze. The water pitcher tilted. A few drops spilled onto the white tablecloth. Vanessa's voice turned sharp. "Watch what you're doing. God, can you do anything right?" Ethan frowned. "Vanessa, it's just water." "It's expensive linen, Ethan, and she's careless, as usual." There was a coldness in his wife's voice that Ethan hadn't noticed before. Or maybe he had, but had chosen to ignore it. Either way, something shifted in the room. Something fragile cracked. After dinner, Ethan found the old maid in the kitchen, washing dishes. He pulled out his wallet, took out several bills, and held them out to her. "Thank you for your service. Please, take this." Mama Ruth stared at the money, at her son's hand, at the kindness in his eyes that saw her as a stranger, deserving of generosity, but not as the woman who'd raised him. She took the bills with trembling fingers, and when their hands touched, just for a moment, Ethan felt something, a jolt of recognition, a memory, the feel of his mother's hands when she'd held him as a child. But before he could process it, Grace appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Sir, there's something you need to know." The next evening, Vanessa was hosting another gathering. She'd invited her inner circle, her most trusted friends, for an intimate dinner. She wanted to show off her husband, fresh from his travels, and remind everyone that she had what they all envied. Mama Ruth was serving again, moving between guests with plates of food, invisible, a ghost in her own son's house. And that's when it happened. A plate slipped from her hands. Not because she was careless, but because her body was failing her. 3 months of stress, of poor sleep, of emotional torture had taken their toll. The china shattered on the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. Everyone froze. Vanessa rose from her chair, her face twisted with rage. "You clumsy, worthless." And then she did it. In front of everyone. In front of Ethan. In front of witnesses who would never forget. She slapped Mama Ruth across the face. The sound echoed through the dining room. Sharp, final. The kind of sound that changes everything. Mama Ruth stumbled backward, her hand flying to her cheek, her scarf slipping. The room went silent. Someone gasped. A glass shattered somewhere. And Grace, standing in the corner, said the words that would detonate this carefully constructed lie. "Sir, that's your mother." At first, no one moved. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. Vanessa laughed. A high, nervous sound. "Don't be ridiculous. That's the maid." But Ethan wasn't laughing. He was staring at the woman, at her face, at the eyes he'd inherited, at the hands that had held him through every nightmare of his childhood. "Mother," his voice broke on the word. Mama Ruth's hands trembled as she reached up and pulled the scarf completely away. Her grey hair fell loose. Her face, weathered and worn, from 3 months of pretending, from a lifetime of sacrifice, looked back at him. The room erupted. Guests whispered. Someone started filming on their phone. But all Ethan could see was his mother. His mother, standing in his house, her cheek red from his wife's hand, her eyes full of tears, and something else. Something that looked like disappointment. You slapped my mother. Vanessa's face drained of color. Ethan, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't. You didn't know? His voice was rising now, shaking with rage. He didn't know. He possessed. So you only abuse people when you think they don't matter? When you think no one important will find out? That's not what What else? He turned to Grace, who stood there with her phone in her hand, her face solemn. What else did she do? Grace looked at Mama Ruth, asking permission with her eyes. The old woman nodded, exhausted, done with hiding. So Grace played the videos. Everyone, every insult, every cruel remark, every moment of humiliation. The guests watched in horror. The room filled with Vanessa's recorded voice, so different from the sweet tones she used with Ethan, so full of venom and contempt. When the final video ended, the one where Vanessa had said, "If she dies, make sure she dies outside. I don't want bad luck in my house," someone in the room started crying. Ethan looked at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. Like the beautiful mask had finally fallen away, revealing the ugliness beneath. "Get out," he whispered. "Ethan, please, get out." His voice shattered the silence. Vanessa flinched, began backing toward the door. "This is my house too," she tried. "No, it's not. It never was. Because a house becomes a home only when love lives there, and you've never loved anything but yourself." Within hours, the videos were online. Grace hadn't posted them, but someone at the dinner party had. And in the age of social media, cruelty spreads faster than compassion. By morning, Vanessa's face was everywhere. News articles, blog posts, YouTube commentaries, Twitter threads. The hashtag her mother-in-law abuse was trending worldwide. Vanessa's luxury lifestyle brand, built on her image as a sophisticated, elegant woman, collapsed in 48 hours. Sponsors dropped her. Partnerships dissolved. Her social media accounts, once filled with adoring comments, became graveyards of anger and disgust. And Mama Ruth, she lay in a hospital bed, hooked to monitors, her body finally giving out after months of stress. Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand, crying like the little boy he used to be when nightmares woke him in the middle of the night. "I'm so sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry I put you through this. I'm so sorry I was too blind to see." She squeezed his hand weakly. "You needed to know, my son. Better now than after children. Better now than after years of living a lie. But at what cost? The truth always costs something. But lies cost everything. If you believe pride always comes before a fall, click that like button right now. And remember, every download of my ebook helps me keep creating stories like this. Stories that remind us what really matters when everything else falls away. 3 days later, Mama Ruth was strong enough to receive visitors. The first person to arrive wasn't who anyone expected. Vanessa. She looked different. No makeup, no designer clothes, just jeans and a plain shirt. Her hair pulled back, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Grace tried to stop her at the door, but Mama Ruth raised a hand. "Let her in." Ethan started to protest, but his mother's look silenced him. Vanessa walked to the bedside and fell to her knees. Not for show, not for cameras, just broken. I'm sorry. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. There's no excuse. There's nothing I can say that will make this right. I was cruel. I was heartless. I was everything ugly that people are saying about me, and worse. Mama Ruth looked down at this woman, this beautiful, broken woman who'd caused her so much pain. Why? She asked simply. Vanessa's face crumpled. Because I was afraid of not being good enough, afraid that if people knew where Ethan came from, they'd judge me, afraid that if I showed kindness to people who couldn't benefit me, it would make me weak. I was raised to believe that power and status were all that mattered, and I believed it. I believed it so completely that I forgot how to be human. The room was silent except for the beeping of monitors and the sound of Vanessa's quiet sobs. Forgiveness isn't spoken, child, Mama Ruth finally said. Her voice tired but gentle. It's lived. You want my forgiveness? Then live differently. Not for me, not for Ethan, for yourself. Because right now, you're the one living in prison, not me. Vanessa looked up, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how. You start by helping someone who can never repay you. You start by seeing people as people, not as transactions. You start by remembering that we're all just walking each other home. Ethan filed for divorce the next week. There was no drama, no fighting. Vanessa signed the papers without a lawyer, without asking for anything. I don't deserve anything from you, she told him in a law office that smelled like old books and regret. I destroyed what we had. I destroyed who I was. I need to find out if there's anything worth saving underneath all the ugliness. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and saw something he'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. Maybe even the beginning of wisdom. I hope you find it, he said quietly. I hope you find the person you are meant to be before the world taught you to be cruel. They shook hands. It felt like a funeral. Maybe it was. The death of who they'd been. The burial of a marriage that had been built on illusions. Money can build houses, but not hearts. Months passed. Seasons changed. Ethan moved his mother into the mansion, turned the basement room into a memory they never spoke of, and dedicated himself to rebuilding what he'd almost lost. Not just his relationship with her, but his understanding of what mattered. He started a foundation for domestic workers, for people treated as invisible, for mothers who sacrificed everything for their children. Mama Ruth helped him design it, choosing carefully where every dollar went. And Vanessa, she disappeared from social media, from public life, from the circles that had once defined her. But Grace, still working at the mansion and still keeping in touch with some of Vanessa's former staff, heard stories of a woman volunteering at homeless shelters, at orphanages, at soup kitchens, working quietly, asking for nothing, trying to learn, perhaps too late, what humility actually meant. 1 year to the day after the revelation, an envelope arrived at the mansion. No return address, just Mama Ruth's name written in careful script. Inside, a letter. Dear Mama Ruth, I know I have no right to write to you, no right to ask anything of you, but I needed you to know that I'm still trying. Every day, I wake up and try to be the person you told me I could be. I work at a home for elderly women now. I help them bathe. I listen to their stories. I hold their hands when they are scared, And every time I do, I think of you on your knees in my house, and I wonder if this is what you felt like. Invisible, dismissed, human. I see your heart learning. That's all I ever wanted. Those words saved my life, not because they excused what I did, but because they gave me permission to believe I could change. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that some way, in a small way, the person you hoped to see in me is starting to exist. Thank you for not giving up on the idea that I could be more than my worst moment. Vanessa. Mama Ruth read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and put it in a drawer with other precious things. Photos, letters from Ethan when he was young. A pressed flower from her late husband's funeral. When Ethan asked her what the letter said, she just smiled. It said that sometimes God lets you lose everything to find your true self. The story could end there. Neat, clean, with lessons learned and characters transformed. But life isn't that simple. The truth is, Vanessa's journey is still happening. Somewhere, she's still learning how to be human, still failing some days, still trying others. And Ethan, he carries the weight of that test he designed, the guilt of what his mother endured, the knowledge that his need for truth cost her so much pain. But Mama Ruth, she sleeps peacefully now, in a comfortable bed, in a house filled with love, in the knowledge that she raised a son who, when faced with a choice between comfort and character, chose character. Even if it took him a while to get there. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's place? And if you believe that humility is the greatest wealth, check the description to grab my ebooks. Your support keeps these stories alive. Stories about real people facing real choices. Stories about what we lose when we forget where we came from. Stories about the long, difficult road back to becoming human. Because at the end of the day, we all have a choice. We can build walls with our success, or we can build bridges. We can use our power to elevate ourselves, or to lift others. We can see people as transactions, or as souls, traveling the same difficult journey we are. Mama Ruth understood this. She always had, and maybe, just maybe, Vanessa is starting to understand it too. The question is, do we? Think about that, and then think about the people you passed today without seeing, the people who served you coffee, who cleaned your office, who held the door, who are working right now, invisible, hoping someone will remember that they matter. Because they do, we all do, and when we forget that, we all lose something we can never get back. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances. Subscribe if you believe in the power of stories to change hearts. And share this if you think someone in your life needs to remember what really matters. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of a community that believes character is more valuable than any mansion could ever be. Until next time, remember, humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. And in a world that constantly tells us to chase more, be more, have more, sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply choosing to be kind, even when no one important is watching. Especially then,